In a small, quiet valley, nestled between two gently sloping hills that looked like sleeping green giants, sat a little cottage. Its roof was made of thick, golden thatch, and its walls were painted the color of fresh cream. Bluebells and forget-me-nots grew in a happy jumble by the front door, and a wisp of smoke, thin as a thread, always curled from its stone chimney. This was the home of a boy named Jack and his mother. Jack was a boy with hair the color of straw in the sunshine and eyes as blue as the summer sky. He wasn't a loud or boisterous boy. He was a dreamer. He found more joy in watching the clouds drift and change shape than in running and shouting. He could spend an entire afternoon lying in the tall grass, listening to the hum of the bees and the whisper of the wind. His mother was much the same, a kind woman with a soft voice and hands that were always busy, either tending to her little garden, mending Jack's clothes, or baking bread that made the whole cottage smell of warmth and comfort. They weren't wealthy. In fact, they had very little. But they had each other, they had their cozy cottage, and they had Daisy. Daisy was their cow, and she was more a friend than livestock. Her coat was a patchwork of white and soft brown, her eyes were large and gentle, and she gave the most wonderfully rich and creamy milk. Every morning, Jack would lead Daisy to the lushest patch of clover, and every evening, he would bring her back to her clean, dry stall, telling her all about the shapes he'd seen in the clouds that day. But a time came when the rains didn't fall as they should. The grass in the valley grew thin and pale, and Daisy grew thin along with it. The milk she gave became less and less, until one day, there was none at all. Jack's mother looked into their pantry, which was nearly bare, and then looked at Jack with sad, tired eyes. "My dear Jack," she said, her voice barely a murmur, "there is no other way. You must take our dear Daisy to the market in the town. We must sell her, so we can buy food to see us through the winter." Jack's heart felt heavy as a stone. Sell Daisy? The thought was unbearable. He hugged his friend's warm neck, burying his face in her soft coat. But he knew his mother was right. The next morning, under a pale and watery sun, he tied a soft rope around Daisy's neck and began the slow, sorrowful walk towards the town. The path was long and dusty, and with every step, Jack's sadness grew. He hadn't gone far when he saw an old man sitting on a mossy stone by the side of the road. The man was peculiar, with a long white beard that tumbled down his chest and eyes that twinkled like distant stars. He leaned on a twisted wooden staff. "Good morning, my boy," the old man said, his voice raspy like dry leaves. "That is a fine-looking cow. But why such a long face on such a fine day?" "I have to sell her, sir," Jack said quietly. "We have nothing left to eat." The old man nodded slowly, stroking his beard. I see. A difficult trade. A friend for a full belly." He reached into a deep pocket of his coat and pulled out a small, worn leather pouch. He loosened the drawstring and poured 5 beans into his wrinkled palm. But these were no ordinary beans. They swirled with colors Jack had never seen before. One was the deep, velvety blue of a twilight sky, another the pearly white of a moonbeam. One shimmered with the green of new spring leaves, another held the soft orange of a sunrise, and the last was a deep, dreaming purple, speckled with tiny flecks of gold that glittered in the light. They seemed to hum with a quiet energy, a silent, magical song. "I will trade you for your cow," the old man whispered, his eyes twinkling brighter. "These are not common beans, you see. They are magic beans. Plant them tonight, under the full moon, and by morning, they will grow right up to the sky itself. They will bring you a fortune far greater than a few coins from the market." Jack stared, mesmerized. He had never seen anything so beautiful or felt such a strange, gentle pull from something so small. The thought of a new adventure, of real magic, began to chase the sadness from his heart. It felt right. He traded Daisy's rope for the 5 humming beans, and the old man smiled, patted Daisy's head, and led her away down a different path. When Jack arrived home, he held out his hand to show his mother the beans. Her face, which had been hopeful, fell. "Beans?" she sighed, her shoulders slumping. "Oh, Jack, you traded our dear Daisy for a handful of ordinary beans." She wasn't angry, just deeply weary and disappointed. She took the beans, and without another word, she tossed them out the window into the little garden patch. That night, they ate the last of their bread for supper and went to bed in a quiet, heavy silence. But Jack couldn't sleep. The moon rose, full and silver, pouring its light through his small window. He crept to the window and looked out at the spot where the beans had fallen. And then he saw it. A faint, pearly light was pulsing from the earth. As he watched, a tiny green shoot pushed its way out of the soil. But it didn't just grow, it unfurled. Another shoot joined it, and they began to twist and weave together, forming a thick, sturdy stalk. It grew without a sound, reaching upwards, its large, smooth leaves unfolding like a silent greeting to the moon. It climbed higher and higher, past the roof of the cottage, past the tallest trees in the valley, a glowing, living ladder that seemed to stitch the earth to the stars. The next morning, Jack woke to a strange green light filling his room. He ran outside. There it was. A magnificent beanstalk, wider than the oldest oak tree, its leaves shimmering with dew, disappearing into a blanket of soft, white clouds high above. His mother stood beside him, her hands clasped in awe. The magic was real. A thrill of pure, quiet wonder ran through Jack. He knew, with absolute certainty, what he had to do. "I'm going to climb it, Mother," he said, his voice full of a gentle determination he didn't know he possessed. The climb was like ascending into a dream. The stalk was easy to climb, with its thick knots and sturdy leaves providing perfect handholds. As he went higher, the world below shrank. His little cottage became a toy, the valley a green and brown map. He climbed through the cool morning mist and into the warmth of the sun, feeling the gentle sway of the beanstalk as if it were breathing with him. Finally, after what felt like a long, peaceful journey, he pushed his head through the top layer of clouds. He found himself in a land of soft, silent wonder. The clouds were a solid, springy ground beneath his feet, rolling away in all directions like a field of snow. In the distance, a long, straight road, paved with smooth, white stones, led to a castle so enormous it seemed to be holding up the sky. Its towers were carved from pearly white rock that shimmered in the light, and its gates were made of polished gold. Everything was hushed and still. Jack walked down the stone road, his footsteps making no sound. The sheer scale of everything was breathtaking. The flowers growing by the road were as tall as trees, and a butterfly that floated past had wings as wide as Jack's outstretched arms. He reached the castle and slipped through the gate, which was just slightly ajar. He found himself in a vast courtyard, and beyond that, an open kitchen door. He tiptoed inside. The kitchen was a cavern of wonders. A table carved from a single slab of oak was so high he could have walked underneath it. A loaf of bread on a wooden platter was the size of a small hillside. A salt shaker looked like a snow-capped mountain. And then he heard it. A deep, rumbling sound, like slow, distant thunder. It was a rhythmic, powerful noise that seemed to shake the very air. Thump, thump, thump. Jack crept towards the sound, his heart beating a little faster, not with fear, but with an intense curiosity. He peeked around a corner into a great hall. There, slumped in a chair so large it could have been a throne, was a giant. He was fast asleep. His head was resting on the table, and his great chest rose and fell with each rumbling snore. He wasn't a frightening giant. He looked ancient and tired, like a mountain that had decided to take a nap. His beard was a tangle of gray and white, like a winter forest, and his huge hands were resting peacefully on his knees. Jack knew he had to be as quiet as a mouse. He explored the silent castle, a tiny visitor in a world of sleeping giants. In one room, he found a small white hen, nestled in a basket of golden straw. As Jack watched, the hen blinked its bright eyes, ruffled its feathers, and laid an egg. But it wasn't an ordinary egg. It was made of pure, solid gold, and it didn't just shine, it glowed. It emitted a soft, warm light, like a tiny, captured sun, filling the room with a feeling of deep comfort and peace. The hen looked at Jack and gave a soft cluck, as if to say, "This is what I do." Jack thought of his mother in their cold, bare cottage. This warmth, this gentle light, was what they needed. In another, even grander room, a beautiful golden harp stood by a vast window. It was taller than Jack, and its strings shimmered as if they were woven from moonlight. It was playing all by itself, a melody so soft and enchanting it was like hearing a lullaby sung by the stars. The music filled the air with a profound sense of tranquility. It was the music of deep sleep and happy dreams. The harp seemed to notice Jack, and its melody shifted slightly, becoming a tune of quiet welcome. Jack knew this was the rest of the fortune. Not just gold, but warmth and peace. He looked at the hen, who hopped out of her basket and trotted to his feet. He looked at the harp, whose music seemed to whisper, "Take us with you. We can bring our light and our lullabies to your small world." Very carefully, Jack lifted the small hen into his arms. She was warm and surprisingly light. He then gently took hold of the golden harp. As soon as he touched it, it fell silent, as if holding its breath. He began his journey back, tiptoeing through the great halls, past the still slumbering giant. The giant's snores were a steady rhythm, a deep bass note to the quiet song of Jack's escape. He didn't stir. Jack slipped out of the castle, across the silent cloudland, and back to the top of the beanstalk. The journey down was quicker, his heart light with joy. He carried the source of warmth in his arms and the source of peace by his side. When he finally set foot on the soft green grass of his own valley, he turned to look back. As the last of the harp touched the earth, the great beanstalk began to dissolve. It didn't fall or break, but slowly, gracefully, it unwound itself, its leaves folding back into the stalk, which grew thinner and more transparent until it was just a shimmer of green light that faded back into the soil, leaving no trace. The magical bridge was gone. His mother ran out of the cottage, her face full of worry, which melted into pure astonishment when she saw the glowing golden egg in Jack's hands and the beautiful, silent harp by his side. From that day on, their lives were transformed. Every morning, the little white hen would lay a glowing golden egg, and they were never cold or hungry again. They had enough to buy back their dear Daisy from the farmer down the road, who had taken good care of her. And every evening, the golden harp would fill their small cottage with the most peaceful, dream-like melodies, ensuring they always had untroubled sleep. Their home was no longer just a cottage, it was a sanctuary of warmth, light, and quiet, gentle music, a small pocket of peaceful magic in a sleeping green valley. And Jack, the boy who listened to the wind, finally had a home that was as quiet and full of wonder as his own dreams.